You're plugged into the Hype Jack, where we discuss all things media, messaging, and money. And today, we're going to be diving in and discussing how your friends can make you a millionaire, specifically, how your friends contribute to your success. Now, before we break any of that down, I want you to ask yourself a question, and I want you to be honest. If you called your friend, if you called your friends, the people in your circle, and you asked them, hey, friend, are you willing to climb Mount Everest with me? What would be the real response that they gave you? Would they say yes? Would your friends say yes if you ask them to climb Mount Everest with you? And you'll see where I'm going here in a little bit. But that's the first question you start with. Because me, look, I'm not a daredevil. There's some people that they want to jump out of planes, they want to skydive. That's great. That's great. That's not me. Some people want to climb up mountains. They want to go hike. I'm not that guy. So if you call me and you ask, hey, Kev, do you want to go up Mount Everest? I'm going to tell you no. I'm going to support you, send you a postcard, but I'm not going to climb with you. And so we have to be really honest with ourselves and say, would my people be willing to climb Mount Everest with me? And here's the thing about Mount Everest, it's the highest point on Earth. Altitude wise, it's the highest point on Earth. And every year it grows. And the reason I tell you that is because we are all dealing with our own version of Mount Everest. Some of us deal with it in the space of sports and athletics. Some of us are dealing with it in business, in entrepreneurship. Some of us are dealing with it in being content creators, influencers. Whatever your Mount Everest is, you got to ask yourself, are my friends willing to make that climb with me? Because the climb, it seems like a fascinating thing, right? But there's some realities about this climb. One of those realities is that every year the climb gets a little bit tougher. Because see, Mount Everest actually grows higher each year by about 2 millimeters or so. But it does get higher every single year. And so when you're looking at Mount Everest, and you say, I'm going to climb it, or I'm going to climb it next year. Next year, it's going to be a little bit harder. The year after that, it's going to be a little bit harder. And so when you're talking to your friends, are we making a climb that could take us multiple years to complete? And are we okay with that climb being a little bit tougher? All right. Now, the next question I want you to ask yourself is first to yourself. Am I willing to pay the cost to climb Mount Everest? You see, me, I'm a layman. I didn't know much about mountain climbing, but I just have recently found out and discovered that people pay to climb the mountain. I was unaware that people were paying to climb Mount Everest. And it's not cheap. It is not cheap at all. It costs somewhere between 30,000 and 100,000 to climb that mountain. And so for the average person, that's a high cost. That's a high cost just to climb the mountain. Because you don't think about all the things it takes to make that climb. You got to think about your equipment, your tents, oxygen mask, all the clothing that you need, the hiking boots, the ropes, all the things that you need to make this climb. You got the Sherpas, your guides, you got to pay them. You got to pay to set up your travel and different things. And a lot of times when we're climbing our own mountains, we don't think about the cost. And guess who else is not thinking about the cost? The friends that we keep around us. And so this is an honest question that we have to first ask ourselves. Are we willing to pay that cost to climb that mountain? And then two, are my people willing to pay the cost? Because look, we all know it. I've been that friend at times. If it's free, it's me. If it's got a cost, I'm getting lost. Okay? If it's free, it's me. Oh, we going here. It's free. It's free 99. I'm there all the time. But once I gotta pay, no way. Right? And we all got friends like that, and that's okay. Those people can still be your friends. I'll tell you a quick story. One of my good friends growing up, I picked him up when we got our cars. I would pick him up, and and I'll take him to school. You know, and at the time, I'm not thinking, no, this is my homeboy. This is my partner right here. I'm gonna pick him up, and I'll make sure we get to school. But anytime I look to him for gas, he looked right back at me, right? Because his mantra is, if it's free, it's me. You're doing the driving. And we both know that we got to get to this destination, but one of us is willing to make the sacrifice, pay the cost to get there, and one of us is not. And every day that I would go and pick my partner up, he's not ready. He would never be ready. We know we got to get to this destination. I'm already fitting the bill on transportation and gas. And each morning he wasn't ready to go. And some of us have those people in our lives where we're on a mission. We know we got goals. And each time we go to try to get to our destinations, they're not ready to go. They're not ready to go. And we can't interpret that as meaning, oh, this is not my friend. It just means the place that you're going, maybe they don't want to go. Maybe they're not prepared to reach that destination yet. Right? And that's something that we all got to understand is that sometimes it just happens like that. But asking ourselves, are our friends really willing to pay a cost to make the climb to Mount Everest with us? Nobody wants to discuss it, I know. I know. And one of the costs that's associated with climbing Mount Everest is actually one that many people might frown down upon. And it is the cost of what's called the Sherpa. And the Sherpas are a group of people who act as guides up the mountain. And the reason that this group of people is so amazing at what they do is because they are genetically acclimated to make that climb. Hear me again. They live in the region, so they're already acclimated to the altitude. They're already acclimated to the environment. They know the surroundings, they know the terrain, they know the pitfalls. And so as we move on, the next question is your friends. Do they think they know more than the Sherpas? Do they think they know more than the people of the land? Because a lot of times we'll have mentors, we'll have coaches. I know when I was in the music industry, you have managers. And sometimes those people that are in our circle, they feel that they know more than those who are of the land, who are acclimated, those who already know the business, those who already have done the things that you're trying to do. And our friends will say, well, I wouldn't do it that way. You wouldn't do it that way because you haven't done it. Very easy. And it's easy to not value a person like that. They're just a guy. They're just a guy. Sure, they are genetically just predisposed to be able to make the climb. But I know more. And it's that ego that comes into play. And a lot of times we'll let our friends, the people in our circle, circumvent this advice that we're getting from the Sherpas, from our guides. Whether that be a mentor, whether that be a coach, whatever the case may be, a lot of times our friends are circumventing that information. And the Sherpas in our life may be saying, hey, I would do it this way, I would take this path. But we have a friend or a group of friends who are telling us, no, this way looks easier. This way is the way we should go. And I'll tell you this, on Mount Everest, the easiest way to go is sometimes the most treacherous, right? It's the most treacherous path. And many of us need a Sherpa, a guide in our life to make sure that if we're choosing a path that we vetted all the paths and we tap in with their knowledge base to make sure that when we make this decision on the route that we're choosing to go reach the summit, that we've done the correct thing, that we've made the absolute correct choice for our situation. And so the final question I'll have you ask is, are you scared? Are you scared? Then ask yourself, are your friends scared? Because the climb of Mount Everest, it's a scary climb. It's a scary climb. Thousands of people each year try to reach the top of the mountain. And I think there's maybe like 800 or so that make it to the top of the mountain. Don't quote me on that, but it's somewhere around those numbers. Each year it can be a little bit higher, a little bit lower. And that's something that my grandmother was asked me, is you scared? And in the great movie Life, my response to all of you would be, don't be scared. Don't be scared. Don't be scared. Don't be scared. Because when we're looking at how big this mountain is, and we already discussed the mountain is growing. Each day the mountain is growing. Are we scared to make the climb? And I ask you that because on Mount Everest, one of the more morbid facts is that sometimes tragedy takes place. And because of the altitude, because of the terrain, you can't always evacuate people off the mountain. And so you have people who have legitimately given their lives to make the climb to a certain point. And they are forever encapsulated in the terrain and they'll never be moved. They are now a part of the mountain. You have people who pass away on the mountain and they serve as markers of areas of the mountain. And when we're thinking about our own mountains, that is the case in whatever field you're in. Again, content creation, business, leadership, doesn't matter. There are going to be some casualties that take place on the mountain. And so the question that we have to ask is, are we scared to look those casualties in the face and think that we can do it? Because that's a crazy thing. You are legitimately looking at someone who has made the mistake and they paid the ultimate price. And so when you're taking your friends up the mountain, the thing you really have to ask yourself is, okay, we're going up the mountain now. I know that at a certain point, we can't just get off. Are you willing to make sacrifices for those people? Are they willing to make those sacrifices for you? Because, you know, there's actually an area on Mount Everest, and they refer to it as the death zone. And as you're scaling really, really high, and as you're almost reaching that point where you're about to achieve, that's where most of the casualties take place. And the thing that we have to ask ourselves is, are the people surrounding me willing to give it all up, land all on the line for me? And am I, in turn, willing to do the same? Because once you get up to a certain point, the resources, the ideas that you have, the decisions you make, all can be for none, or they can lead to you reaching the summit. And in some worst cases, some of the most worst cases, they lead to the ultimate sacrifice, which is your life. So I'm asking you, when you bring people up this mountain with you, are you willing? Are you willing to give your life for them and them to do the same for you? That's a conversation that a lot of people do not want to have. But it's one that is a merited discussion. If we're going up this mountain together and something happens, something traumatic happens, are we willing to sacrifice for each other? I know. It's tough, it's heavy. And so when we started off the conversation, I said, hey, we're going to be talking about how your friends can make you a millionaire. Now, here's the easy part of this conversation. If you answer no to any of these, then you got to reevaluate who your friend circles is, who your friends are. And that does not mean that they're not your friends, but they just can't make the climb with you. And it doesn't mean that they don't love you, they don't care about you. Because see, what we do a lot of times, and I'm talking creators, I'm talking business people, what we do a lot of times is we see our people and we love our people and we know the feeling that we're going to have when we get to the mountaintop. We know the feeling that we're going to have when we reach the summit. And we want to share that feeling with the people we care about most. But here's the thing, the people that we care about most, some of them are not ready to make the climb. You see, some of them they want to cheer you on from level ground. They want to be your fan from level ground. And we'll get mad. We'll say, "Oh, you didn't share my video. Oh, you didn't join my fan club." Because we are expecting them to want to make the climb. And that's not always the case. Everybody isn't going to want to make the climb with you. Doesn't mean that they're not your friend. Doesn't mean they're not your family. Doesn't mean that they don't love you. It just means factually they don't want to make that climb with you. Some people want to stay on level ground, and that's okay. But you still got to climb, right? You still got to climb. And so if any part of this you said no to, well, those friends, those family members, they're not geared to make the climb with you. And so it's easy. You just got to get a team that wants to make that climb with you. And sometimes it's people that maybe associates where you have a common interest. But how your friends can make you a millionaire. Now, that was the purpose of this conversation. And it's really easy. If the answer to this was yes, specifically the are you scared? Are you willing to sacrifice? Then you've already got your answer. You've already got your answer right there. If the answer was yes, for all of these scenarios, for everything I told you today, then you have the team in place. And now it's the easiest part. You just get to climb it. Everything else will figure itself out. It's going to figure itself out. But the foundational point of this is, do you have the people who even want to make the climb with you? If they answered yes to everything that we just discussed, then they're certified to be on your team. Because I'll tell you what, first of all, if they're going to make you a millionaire, make you successful, they got to look at your vision and they got to know that your vision's getting bigger, bigger each year, that the mountain's getting taller and taller, and they can't be intimidated by that fact. Right? Point two, they got to be willing to pay the cost. Sometimes that cost is money, sometimes that cost is time. Sometimes that cost is holding you accountable, being honest with you about your ideas, about your decisions. Are they willing to pay the cost? Because some people are not willing to pay that cost, right? And lastly, are they scared? Are they scared? Right? If they're scared and they don't want to climb, you can't take them. Can't take them. If they're scared and they want to make the climb, then you got yourself a winner. You got yourself a winning team. And so as we start to put our friend groups together and we make business decisions and we want to come into partnership, we really have to ask ourselves these questions, because a lot of times we haven't vetted our close friends and family enough before we go into business, before we go into content creation, before we go into creative spaces, and then it becomes a problem because they didn't want to make the climb in the first place. But again, if they answered yes to all of this, your friends can make you a millionaire. Your friends can make you successful. I'm Kevin Jack. Don't forget to plug into your own hype, plug into your potential, and I'll see you on the other side. Peace.